like mine. Okay, so.
Okay.
So tonight we've decided to talk about values and priority. No,
No. We're gonna talk about
I think
how we how we talk about values,
how we talk about
and that
values,
includes standards and a few other
boundaries,
terms,
some boundaries,
boundaries.
our
Um,
personal program.
yeah, and just start trying to create a framework for how we're gonna try and talk to other people about it, because it's easy for us because we live it, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's sometimes it's difficult when you start trying to put things into words to be simple, or actually when you're just acting on stuff rather than trying to communicate about it. It's very difficult to create a very simple framework without basically reading or writing a book. Um,
Or over analyzing
oh
it,
yeah,
or getting caught, being lost in the details of other people's opinions or other people's definitions. That's a tricky one for me. Is it's like how other people define them.
yeah,
That doesn't have to be the way we define them, and so our goal for these conversations is to build some common ground with definitions, so that when we're talking about values, it resonates loudly with you, or you guys can at least understand our definition of it, um, because like he said, the framework is super important to grow on. And what I found and continue to find is most people get held up on the how to. They have this idea and this goal of what they want, or maybe this dream life, but they don't know how to initiate it, like what the action plan looks like. And so that's what that's what we want to help with. So, how do you define values?
um, I think the simplest way that I would think of it is, values are the way you spend your time, your money, your energy, or any combination. Um,
That make you feel good,
yeah,
right?
or
Because,
that you need.
well, we can have patterns, and I can spend money on things that I don't necessarily value because I've adopted this opinion or this belief that I'm supposed to. And that's the problem, I think, is that people don't know their actual real values, and so they get caught up in these behaviors that don't align with them, and then they can't find their tribe or their group of people or their partners because they're disconnected with their true purpose.
Right.
Yeah, so I would say my values are something that gives me energy all the time. And they're things that I would fight for. And that if I got woken up in the middle of the night, like I would have enough energy to, you know, protect them. And that's not because it's coming from a lack point of view, as in I don't have enough, as in I'm afraid not to have it. It's coming from a point of inspiration and abundance. Like, I want more of it because it makes me feel so good. And so one of my values is emotional freedom and stability, like emotional health. That's one of my top value. And so every action that I do, as long as it aligns with me having, mental and emotional stability, I'm okay with it. Like, I can justify it. I'm not going to get any guilt or shame. It's not going to eat me alive. But if I act in a way that isn't aligned with my emotional health, I will get this shame and guilt, and I will feel really bad about it, and it'll eat up all my energy. And so that's why it's important to know what your values are, because when you know what they are, you don't have to constantly defend it. You can just trust that you made the right decision, and it's easier to forgive yourself in certain situations, or just have this faith because you ultimately know that you're taking the step towards something that adds to your cup instead of takes it away. What do you think?
Uh, you know, you and I have had this conversation several times, and we do similar things for different reasons.
Yeah.
I she her values are emotional freedom and stability. Mine, the way I say it, is mental and physical health and balance. And oddly enough, that when I do my things, I get emotional freedom. That's what that accomplishes for me. And so you know, we just use different language when it comes to it, and that's fine, as long as you know where you know your own language.
You have to have a bridge, like in any partnership, relationship, friendship. You have to have a bridge, some common ground, and so that's what we constantly try and create this common ground so that we can understand each other, um, and it creates a deeper level of intimacy. But I think our stories, our definitions are different because of our background, because of where we came from, and what we've been through, and that's fine, as long as we have effort. Because he can have a completely different opinion of mine. Um, that's fine. His values align with mine. We're headed in the same direction, right? Because we both want to feel free and be free. And we don't want to live in our head, and we want to be able to control our emotions. So we don't want anything to control us. And that's why, when we're moving in the right direction together, I don't care what he calls it, we're still going down the same road. You know what I mean? But it's important to be able to respect that. So we talk to Oliver and Jaden, our kids, about that all the time. It's just like respecting someone else's opinion enough, and just interacting with them.
Yeah. I'm just writing down a bunch of words because we're going to try and create a small
encyclopedia for our app. So some of you know already that we're building an app. It's called the 6-week Become the Perfect Partner Challenge, and it's about, we all have this idea of this perfect person that we want to attract, or we think we deserve, or we thought we should have by now. But we don't focus on the person we have to become in order to attract that person or to be happy with that person. We have a lot of inner work we have to work through and break down some of our beliefs and values. And so these videos are going to be reference videos for people on the app, but we're building a mini encyclopedia of our language that we use all the time so that it's easier to kind of catch on. Yeah, so I think it's super important to know your values because for me, like, it gets rid of all the guilt and shame or my second guessing of if I'm doing the right thing or not. I have a habit of caring about other people, what they're thinking, and we know that that's none of my business by now. But I still get caught up doing it. And so it's a priority for me to keep myself in check and have some sort of checks and balances with myself, right? And I can communicate that with Kyle, and Kyle can reflect it back to me to make sure my program's running smoothly. But it's also a standard. I build my standards of how I let people treat me and how I treat other people based on my values. And for me, standards is a really big deal because I always struggled with boundaries. And when I started to work on my boundaries, I realized I had really low standards in almost anything. And so standards doesn't have to be like this hoity-toity thing. It can just be having clear expectations that you're not, like a hard, how can I say that? Like, I'm drawing a blank now. Talking about the standards and boundaries, like.
Yeah, it's a hard boundary is where it's like not fluid at all, and nothing is ever going to cross this point if it's a hard boundary. A good example is like the United States. State boundaries are soft boundaries where you can cross, go back and forth, but the rules are different. And international borders are hard boundaries. You got to go through customs. You got to show your ID. Different federal government, all these things. So, that's one of the ways it was kind of explained. That's and so, like a hard boundary for a relationship might be there's no hitting. That's a hard boundary.
Or cheating.
Right. But like a soft boundary might be there's no yelling. Because you might get an argument and somebody might yell, and you're gonna let that go once in a while. But you got to be aware of the pattern. But it's a big difference. Getting hit in the face and somebody just reacting one time. So I think that might be a good example of that.
Yeah, and so the standards, we draw our standards off our values and our experiences.
Right, and what other people reflect back to us, either about ourselves,
Yeah.
about our patterns. We know oftentimes, I can make mine off what I know what I don't want. I know what I don't want. I know how I don't want to be, so I'm gonna, just avoid being that, and then hopefully, if I just don't go back into my old behavior, I can, and be aware of what my old behavior is. That's the key: is being aware of what it was you would have done, or used to do, and then ask somebody you trust what you should do, and get a couple options you maybe didn't think about, and then choose. Especially if you think there's only one option for any given situation, because there's always more than one option.
Yeah, and so asking people you trust, like that's very important to make any type of progress or checks and balances about, how you're living or how you're being experienced, because, it's none of my business what people think, but it is my business how they experience me, because I want to be experienced in a certain way, right?
Right.
Like I want to make people feel good, and I want to be welcomed and happy, and not super critical. I have a habit of doing that, and so it's how do you find people you trust, though, right?
Well, just I something when you said that occurred to me, which is I said before, maybe not to you, but elsewhere, like in a meeting or something, was like, I don't really care if you like me, but I like it when you like me, because I get a lot more things that when good,
I get more shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether it's just positive.
Well, it could be material stuff, but it could be the energy exchange.
No, it's
right?
energy.
You
I mean,
get the
I don't
energy
really want the
exchange
stuff
from it.
usually anyway. So
You always have feedback loops.
yeah.
There's a feedback loop between two people regardless, and so.
But not everyone's gonna like you either, and it'd be weird if everyone was liking you. So.
That's its own problem, right?
Yeah.
That's its own problem.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say is that how do you find people that you trust? Well, they probably have the same values as you.
Yeah.
Right? Like generally, you have like a top 3 values, and every action in your life should fall under supporting one of those values. And if you can just live your life like that, you're gonna feel pretty good overall, because a lot of the mental chatter will start to drift away, because you know why you're doing it, right? Your motivation. So you find people who have those values.
Right.
Because
and the only way to
motivated.
find those people is to talk about your values.
Yeah.
Because, as they often talk about in these kind of self-actualization coaching classes, is like, if you're thinking about it, you're going to see it out there. If you're looking, if you want some candy and you're thinking about candy, you're going to see candy next, or something like that,
Like you buy a brand new car and then you see the car
if you're a business
everywhere,
person,
right?
if you're a business person, you're gonna see how everything relates to business. If you are a mom, you're gonna see how everything relates to your kids. So kind of about your identity.
How
really.
you identify, yeah.
Yeah. So
that's its own topic, I feel like.
Well, it is, but it's also important if you're gonna try and find people who have similar values as you. The only way to find that feedback is to, I hate the term, but be vulnerable and initiate and and it's really a matter of balancing expectations or managing expectations. If you expect to find your best friend tomorrow and you haven't met him yet, that's a crazy expectation.
Listen, I've been looking for best friends my whole fucking life. You have no idea. Never found. Well,
she finds friends at the grocery store regularly and never sees them again.
That's just crazy. I'm like, oh my god, hi, yeah, dude. So that strategy didn't work for me. I'm trying to pick up friends on the ground. Fuck off. Okay.
Anyways, so I don't know how long we've been going, but
not that long.
We started this because we need to create a brief explanation for the chart, the list.
Yeah,
here
so we have a list.
The values
right here,
workbook.
And then we have a workbook that we're doing, so we're kind of walking through this workbook to help people discover.
People start to figure out either who they want to be, who they are, who they think they are, and why.
Well, I was going to get into that, because if it's like, okay, you don't know your values. For me, it was very difficult to identify 3 values that like I was down to fight for, right, and live by my everything. And it was easy, right? It kind of charged me. That was very difficult. So what I did is I found people that I looked up to, or that I thought were role models, or that had something that I wanted, right? It wouldn't might not have been like their entire personality or their life, but maybe it was like, damn, they have a really nice house, or they have a. For me, oh my god, it was relationships. I would always find there's like a couple of my friends' parents, and I'm like, how do you like? I've never seen a relationship where people actually love each other and they touch each other and they flirt, and you guys have been married for like 30 years, and it was just really intriguing. And so I would study them because I'm like, what qualities do you have that I can what is it, amplify or
No, emulate.
emulate? What qualities do you have for the woman that I can emulate and repeat? So if I can just change my behaviors to act in a way that I respect, that I know gets me something that I want because of the relationships that I'm watching, and studying, then I can just start adopting those behaviors. And that's a first step without overthinking it, right?
Yeah, it's like the thing we joke about all the time is like I just show up. It's like
I just show up, absolutely.
and that's in I'll say recovery slash addiction is that gets changed. You stop showing up at some point. You stop physically showing up to things that you probably should be at.
Yeah, and just real quick, it's not just with recovery, right? So, like, we both have a past in abusive relationships. Whether drugs and alcohol was involved or not, it's a completely different issue, and you have to handle it and treat it differently. And so, when we talk about recovery, it's a whole host of things we're trying to cover from, but especially these abusive relationships. Like when you're in a relationship with someone who's abusive, it's a lack of values and standards for sure. But what happens is that you spiritually stop showing up, right? Like you're not present, or you're withholding part of yourself, and then you walk around. If you get out of that relationship, you walk around showing up to life holding back a bunch of who you are. And it's unfortunate because it takes away from other people being able to connect with you on those deeper levels. But it's because you're scared.
Yeah,
Know?
or just or
Traumatized.
numb.
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 Yeah, numb's
Which
a great
I
word.
mean, alcohol and drugs tend to help you numb everything out, and so that's where I was at. I would use humor to relate to people. It was the only way I could relate to anybody. Just get people to like me because I was funny, and all my friends were based on drinking. So um, it was very interesting when I got clean, and I still was funny, but I was like, I don't really like any of these people, even though so I had to figure out a different way to relate to people. And she called me on it pretty early on. It's like, you don't really say anything about yourself. I don't even know like who you are. It was pretty early, but still, it's true.
Quite selfish. Quite selfish.
Oh well.
It was because I was pulling more of the weight in the conversation, and I was sharing more of my information, myself with you, and I didn't really get that back. And so I was insulted. I was insulted by that because I felt more vulnerable than him, and I was like, that's unbalanced. And in my last relationship, every relationship, it was unbalanced. I ended up getting abused in it, and so I was not about to have that. But I learned how to identify it, by talking about some of my priorities and values. Like communication is really big. It's really big for me, right? And so I've learned how to communicate. Sometimes, I mean, for the most part, I do well, but some things, I'll fall into my old patterns and put the stuff in like a bank and let it stew. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then poor Kyle is hearing about it one night. I'm like,
yeah, it's interesting. For sure, because we both have a tendency to do that sometimes.
I think humans in general, right? If you don't know, for me, like if I don't know how I feel about something, I just am like bothered by it. I don't have the right words to put behind it, and so I'm trying to figure out how to communicate it because I don't want to say the wrong thing because I don't know what it is.
Well, another struggle that is just interesting is like the prioritization of our relationship over the kids, and like at some point we've had to cut off things, and then we get irritated with each other because the kids interrupted a conversation, we couldn't finish it. And so it's been when we're really busy, sometimes things get put on the back burner, and it can be a process to get everything out eventually, and well, so.
But we're working on that with balance.
Well, yeah, balance, and that's what I wrote down was like that's a huge value for me is balance. Listening to my body, eating things that are good for me, having um, self discipline. Owning my shit is a huge thing for me because it's the only thing I can control.
And that's a practice.
It's I mean
It's a practice.
it's intense.
That
it's
means
intense.
Doing it every day, ongoing. You never finish it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and one of the things I came up with in treatment or I wrote about, I think, is like when things are good, I have to keep doing the things that were good that got me there.
Yeah.
I don't just take days off because it's sunny or whatever. Like working out. Somebody once told me you can eat whatever you want. I'm like, yeah, but then what? Like it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
All this is a lifestyle, um, and it's not easy. I was working a shit job for 4 months, and I turned into a fucking prick. Uh, and I don't even know exactly what about it was, but.
Well, I'll tell you, definitely the people were not the most positive. And so when you're spending time around people who are not, that don't share common values as you, then, there's an effect. There's some sort of feedback loop that happens from
Right.
that, and then you bring it home with you. So.
Yeah. I mean, there was several things, but that was a major one. Is just the feeling stuck. So.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to priorities and values and boundaries and standards, it's important to just know that they can change.
They will change.
At every point, we have seasons
I
in
mean,
our
for
life, and then the
example, if
seasons have
somebody broke
stages.
their leg tomorrow, that would be the priority. Like it would dominate our time for a couple of days at least.
So I think values is something that you kind of, it's like a overarching like of your life. If you were
right,
here,
and there's different levels. Like spiritual. Like, I mean, I think it's important. You can go back to the 7 things that. What is it? The 7 things.
Okay.
Like it's.
I have it here in the workbook.
It's spiritual, community, physical, money. That's 4 or 5.
Yeah, so you got the financial freedom, and then we'll list it off. We'll do just an entire video about that exercise because it's really helpful, and it's a fulfillment exercise. So you judge 7 areas of your life, and then you rate it based on where you are in your life, and then you rate it again on where you want to be. And so these videos are about the steps getting to where you want to be, but it's up to all the listeners and everybody as an individual to decide what they want, what they want to go after, their goals, their dreams, or what behaviors or what type of people they want to be like if they can't identify
it.
Yeah.
And I think I struggle when I think about values, and I think about the people in general, and I think a lot of people get trapped. They trap themselves into thinking the values they've adopted from other people are their values. And like, for example, people have told me my whole life I need to work hard and save my money and all these things. And you just do it because you think you're supposed to do it because somebody told you that a long time ago. So you feel like you're doing the right thing, but you're really not analyzing what you're doing and why and trying to make the best decision and really learning about what those things are accomplishing for you, what the other opportunities are, doing what you really want to do. um, you know I'm not here to tell you that anybody's doing those things wrong, but I don't think they're really doing them for the right reasons.
And the point of this is to say, what are the reasons you're doing things for?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, that's your value. What's the point? What's the motivation behind it? Or what is your motive, right? What's my motive behind doing this? Do I want attention? You know what I mean? And then that's fine. Is it good attention or is it negative attention?
Yeah.
Right? And right there, and you can get into your values about that. where your values are based on what type of behavior you are seeking, for attention or
Right.
yeah.
Attention, some kind of financial.
Work. Oh my God, I had a great lesson about that. Yeah, so I had a client who was willing to pay me money, but in order to get this money, I ended up having to compromise my own values, and it was a lot of money. And I just could not bring myself around to do it. I just couldn't, because it was against some of my beliefs and against my values. And what happened is, when I started making decisions that led me off my road, I felt bad. I felt bad inside. I started getting depressed. I was irritable. Like, I lashed out. I took it out on other people because I felt like the pressure of being forced to do something I didn't want to do. I mean, if you feel like that, it's a perfect time to start to, sit down and reevaluate what's leading you towards that feeling and what's in your control to change, right? Like, that's a big one.
Right.
So.
Right. And, we have a lot of instilled beliefs and values that come from our culture, which, I won't get into that right now, but it's very frustrating to see what we've turned our society into, because we all value, technology and ease of life, but it's difficult to just co-sign everything that we've accomplished as good for us, because I don't think anybody's all that happy with it. Even the people that have all the money don't seem to be that happy. So it's like fucking.
Let me tell you, you think you have problems now? No.
So you can tell yourself whatever you want, but just being honest with yourself, about who you are, why you are, and who you want to be.
And so that's for you, who he thinks a lot, right? And I can get there now, but that's not how I got into all this work. I got into all this work by how I felt, by what felt good and what didn't feel good, and that's literally how I had to, take my bites at my program and figuring out what worked for me and what didn't. So, and then you can do all the, mental work behind it later. You don't have to do it right away.
Yeah.
But what I will say is, if all this is overwhelming and you're like, okay, what are my values? Or maybe like might be why the people that I hang out with, I don't feel fulfilled. Pick 3 values that you think you might like, and then just try living 1 week and having all your actions align with them. Or just acting the way you are and saying, does this align with, value A? Does this align with value B? Does this align with value C? And what you'll find is that you will pick values that align with your behaviors, and you'll start to identify, some will make you feel good and some will make you feel bad. And when you're making decisions that make you feel bad, and you're able to, create this process of analyzing it regularly, and kind of challenging your beliefs and challenging your actions, that's the foundation to change. Like, that's how change happens. So.
Should we plug the book?
Plug the book?
Yeah, the book.
My book?
Your book?
The Boundary book?
Well, you can do that, but that's not out yet. No, the one we bought the. Not yet. All right.
More to come.
All right.
Do you have anything else?
No, I mean, this is a long one.
So if you guys are watching anything and you have questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to Kyle or I. Generally, how we do it in our relationship is that I respond to the females and he responds to the males. And whether it's female or male that hit, if girls hit him up, I still respond to them. And if guys hit me up, he still responds. And that's a boundary that we came up with, because I like that. So that was my request, and Kyle was down with it. And so let us know. You can come and talk to us, or send us, an email?
I mean, we're both on Facebook.
We're both on Facebook.
We have email, trueselfrecovered@gmail.
Mm-hmm. Eventually we'll have an intro and outro. But please, if you have any questions or topics or anything, give us, get the information to us somehow, because we'd love to support and, you know, share our insight, because our goal is to share our experience and give you guys some strength and a system on how to get to where we're at, and a system for where we're trying to get to. You know, what we do to get to where we want to, our goals.
Yeah, I don't think if it's not clear yet, I just like answering questions and talking about them. So, I mean, I don't even know if they're right. I just like, well, here's what I'll go. I'll take.
Kyle likes to talk. He loves his voice.
Shut the hell up.
Okay, bye guys. Let's see if I got it.
I think I got a good list. It'll need some